The sound of dripping water woke me from my slumber. I carefully opened my eyes as a burning sensation passed through them briefly. Once it went away, I saw nothing but darkness. I had no idea where I was, or how I even got there. At first, I thought that I had gone blind, but then I was able to make out some detail of the cold tiled floor. The next thing I noticed was the intense headache that pounded my head. I was about to rub my temples, but I realized that both my hands and legs were tied up behind me. I struggled to free them, but the movement caused the pounding in my head to increase, and I suddenly vomited. I wrinkled my nose in distaste, as the smell bothered me. I abruptly tensed as the sound of a door opening echoed in the quiet. I hushed my breath in an attempt to remain hidden. However, the disturber of the silence opened the door to my cell and stood at the entrance. My eyes winced as light came into the cell and illuminated me. Unfortunately for me, all I can see was the person's outline. I wasn't sure whether I should be grateful that the figure closed the door to shield my eyes from the glaring light, or to feel panicked. The figure took a step towards me. Despite how hard I tried to push myself away from the figure, my bounds were too tight, so I didn't get more than a good centimeter away from my initial position. The figure made a noise of disgust, and I instantly froze.
Nasty,
the figure commented. I figured that he was referring to the vomit on the floor. The figure made a sniffling noise before he shuddered and made a heh sound.
You're a spunky little one, aren't you?
The figure said. I stared at the ground, wordlessly, and focused on calming down my breathing. I heard shuffling above me, and when I lifted my head a bit, I was staring eye to eye with the figure. His face was mostly covered by darkness from the room, yet I could make out his eyes, which were glowing an electric blue color. I felt my face pale at the sight. The figure chuckled.
I suppose you now realize who I am?
He asked. Unable to reply, I found it hard to do anything but stare at his eyes. It was the first time I had seen a phantom's eyes up close. The shade of color swirled like a hurricane, and what little light there was, present, glowed through the pupils. The phantom stared back at me, not blinking even once. Eventually, the staring got too much for me, so I ended up looking down and rested my head against the cold floor. Apparently, the phantom agent had other plans, as he pressed 2 fingers under my chin and forced me to look up again.
That was rude of you,
he commented.
Didn't your mother ever teach you not to stare at a person too long?
Once again, I didn't answer. The phantom then squeezed my cheek slightly.
Oh wait, that's right. You don't have a mother,
he said, as he grinned maliciously. I narrowed my eyes and spat at him. For a moment, the phantom agent tensed before he slowly wiped my saliva from his cheek. It seemed like an eternity had gone by before the phantom reacted. I didn't anticipate the strength of the blow as he slapped me with incredible force across my cheek. It knocked me down so hard that I saw stars in my blurry vision. My face rested against the ground, and I saw the phantom get up and wipe imaginary dust from his cloak.
That was also rude,
he finally said.
Looks like I'll have to teach you some manners, young lady. Luckily, I know just the trick.
His tone caused shivers to crawl down my spine, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood on end in apprehension. The phantom agent chuckled quietly.
Well, there's nothing I can't do once I set my mind to it. Don't worry, darling. I'll have you back to good in no time.
I could practically hear the smirk in his tone. Abruptly, The Phantom knelt down again and forced me to look at him.
Do you want to know why our eyes glow?
He asked, almost excitedly.
You see, once a person is taken in by us, their eyes are retrofitted to allow them to have night vision, hence the glow that you see. Why is it that you think no one sees us, yet we always see them?
He grinned at the last part. I stayed mute as I struggled to control my vision and the dizzying feeling that I experienced. The Phantom huffed in disappointment.
Agent Moore, why must you continue to rebel? Don't you see that we only want your cooperation? No harm will be done to you if you do as we say.
I inhaled sharply. Over my dead body, I quietly but firmly said. The Phantom agent looked at me for a moment before he shook his head.
You leave me with no choice, Agent Moore,
he replied. I tensed as he got up and shuffled through his pocket. He took out a thick collar with spikes on them. As he approached me, I instinctively tried to move away. The agent laughed briefly.
There's nowhere to go, Agent Moore. You're stuck here until you decide to cooperate. Until then, we'll be keeping an eye on you with this.
To emphasize his point, the Phantom agent knelt down and pushed me to the wall. I gritted my teeth as the movement caused the bounds to tighten and peel into my skin. The Phantom agent dismissed my hiss of pain and proceeded to put the collar around my neck. I winced as the short spikes pierced into my skin to firmly attach the collar. The Phantom leaned back.
There, all good,
he said.
Now we can keep an eye on your vitals, among other things.
He smirked. I glared at him weakly as I spat out blood to the side. The Phantom agent took out a device with a small handle on it.
This here will control the amount of voltage that will course through your body. Allow me to demonstrate.
The Phantom raised the handle slightly, and a pleasant surge of electricity coursed in my body. All of my nerves came alive, and my senses heightened. The Phantom smirked.
Does that feel good?
He asked.
Don't get used to it. If you're disobedient, expect a world of pain from this.
He pointed to the device to enforce his point. He raised the handle higher, and immediately the pleasant hum of electricity turned to a sharp shock. I gritted my teeth to prevent a yelp from escaping my mouth. Thankfully, the Phantom agent lowered the handle all the way down, and I gasped in relief. The Phantom stood up and glanced down at me.
You don't have to go through this, Agent Moore,
he repeated.
Just follow our instructions, and nothing will happen to you.
For the next few minutes, the only sound in the small room was my hard breathing. I coughed until my throat went hoarse. And immediately, the Phantom pulled a small bottle of water from inside his cloak. He opened the lid and carefully pressed the bottle to my lips. I drank gratefully from the bottle, though I didn't take into consideration of what was in it. All I cared about was getting my thirst quenched. After a couple of swallows, I finished the entire bottle. The Phantom agent then placed the empty bottle back inside his cloak. A couple of more minutes passed before I finally spoke. What happened? I asked, though my voice croaked. The Phantom agent grinned.
I'm glad you asked,
he said.
You see, after your plane landed in New York, we had our people come and greet you personally. Unfortunately, your team didn't have manners, and we were forced to take drastic action. Luckily, I was there to save you, and brought you here for treatment. Our doctors are truly amazing.
He smiled, though the glint in his eyes gave it a more malicious appearance. I fought the urge to shiver. "What about the others?" I asked. The Phantom Agent dismissed the question with a movement from his right hand.
Forget about them. We were only after you,
he said, as he stared at me intensely. I didn't bother hiding the shiver that ran through my body. "Why?" I asked, once I had gathered the courage. "Why are you after me?" The Phantom smiled once more.
Because you would make a valuable asset to our organization. The Seekers have been putting your talents to useless work, which greatly lowers your standards and abilities. We are simply doing this for your own benefit.
I huffed in disagreement. "You think that I'll join you right off the bat? Don't think that I've forgotten what your organization has done to me in the past." The Phantom Agent gave me a look of disapproval.
The past is the past. Times have changed, whether you like it or not.
He then leaned closer.
You will join us, one way or another.
My teeth shivered, not from fear, but from exhaustion. The Phantom noticed my current state and stood up.
You're in an awful state right now. I'll be back later to start your treatment,
he commented. I shivered once more as I imagined to what his treatment may have included. The Phantom Agent turned around and made his way to the door. Just as he opened it, he turned around and looked at me.
By the way, you're a horrible dancer.
He then smirked. My eyes widened at his statement. I eventually found my voice again and spoke. "Who are you?" I asked, weakly. The Phantom Agent cocked his head to the side.
My name is Shadow.
He started.
And if you think that this has a happy ending, then you really haven't been paying close attention.
With that, the Phantom Agent laughed, which echoed in the small room and seemed louder than reality. He smirked at me once more and closed the door, which enveloped me in a thick darkness.